Hi, thanks for tuning into the podcast. My name is Luke Yannick, and today I'm excited to share an interview I did with my business partner, my father-in-law, Eric Gould. Eric Gould started Aerial Recon back in 1985 with John Wadlow. They started off with an R22 and a little fixed-wing aircraft, and they grew it to one of the bigger aircraft companies in Canada with over 200 employees. Along the way, he has a lot of stories, a lot of challenges, a lot of inventions that happened, and I'm excited to share some of those stories with you. Hope you enjoy. How did you end up starting Aerial Recon?
About 1985. So just prior to that, we had run separate companies. The partner and I that hooked up, John Wadlow, had Aerial Air, and I had Reconnaissance Air, and we were a little competition, but not a lot of competition. And he had started a company. And basically, neither one of us were doing very good.
Okay.
That's really what happened. We met each other at a show. So a bit like one of those self-improvement shows, become the better user and everything.
Okay.
They had a show, and he kind of looked up and he saw me, and I was surprised to see him. And after, he says, well, we should go for coffee and talk. And we did, and one thing led to another. And eventually, October 85, we were together. So we formed one company called Aerial Recon, Ltd, from Aerial Air and Reconnaissance Air. And I threw in, I had a fixed wing. He had a 177 and an old Robinson, one of the original Robinson 22s that came in the system. And yeah, it was a bunch of poor equipment is what it was. So we had gone to the bank, and I had known the bank manager quite well from the community, Frank. And John says, well, we'll never get a loan from him. I says, well, I think I can get a loan from him, but we need to start with good equipment.
Okay.
So in 1985, we signed a loan together for, I think it was $230,000. And it was more money than either one of us had in assets.
Okay.
Frank was a really nice guy about it, but John looked over at me before he signed. He says, are you sure? He says, I've never borrowed this much money. And he did. And we signed it, and we borrowed our first $240,000 and started buying aircraft to do the proper job. And we tried to expand the pipeline side. We tried to build a base in the pipeline patrol side.
Okay.
And we quickly realized the competition, we needed to be different than them.
Mm-hmm.
But in any event, so October 85, we're finally together, and we throw together, and it's probably the coldest October either one of us had ever seen. It was minus 30, and we had rented this hangar, and the hangar didn't have a door on it. So we hung a bunch of rugs on it and put a Jonatrol heater inside so that we could at least work on the aircraft and whatnot. But yeah, it was just a calamity of errors initially as we got started. And when we finally got through to spring, we had made a little bit of money, and we decided we were going to trade up. And at the time, the aircraft was an R22. Then they came out with an R22 HP. Then they came out with an Alpha. And that was their first. They were trying to get more power, more speed. And I mean, heck, the first 22 we had didn't even have a heater in it.
Oh, wow.
So it was cold.
Okay.
But we finally got an Alpha model, and I made it, I got the call signs C-GJNR, and it was Gail, Jesse, Naomi, and Ryan.
Oh, cool.
For the call sign. It was kind of like a rainbow coloring scheme on it, but didn't care much about it. But yeah, that's basically how we started out in 85, and one helicopter, one R22, and then we went to the Alpha model, and we started working with Frank, saying we needed to get bigger ship. We needed a ship with a little more power than that.
Mm-hmm.
We did a little bit of work with Frank as we started buying more ships from him. He started trusting us and moving forward. So the first years were just a bliss. I mean, you're just terra firma. You're just like a cat grabbing dirt. It's just, we were growing. So we added fixed wing. We added a couple of Cardinals per patrol. We added a couple of Robinsons. And you have to remember that when you have one machine and you add another one, well, you're doubling the fleet.
Mm-hmm.
after you started adding one a year, it wasn't such a bad deal when you had 3 or 4 of them helping to pay for it. But yeah, it was a very interesting relationship. John and I got along pretty well. He did sales, and I looked after the operational side, and gradually the business kept growing. But our first employee was Murray Schroeder, employee number 1, and he was still with us when we sold out and quit.
Oh, that's neat.
So it was really we were lucky enough to have really good people. The people we hired really wanted to work. So as I told John, I said many times, we stood on the shoulders of giants because they allowed us, by doing a good job out in the patch, then the guys would ask us for more work. So the scheme was you do a really good job, and then when you're finished, you ask them for another one.
Mm-hmm.
And that seemed to work. Every time we went out to do a job, the pilot would say, well, if you have any more, we'd love to have your work. And it just kept growing. So people like Shell, Terry McGowan with Shell and whatnot, that gave us chances. And so you have to remember the nice thing about pipelines is the fact that it's constant. Every week you have X amount of work to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives you a bus to work with to go forward. There's a constant flow of money. It's not like opening up your charter outfit. I wanted to stay away from that. And when I started with John, our work was pretty much 90% one company. And I said, we have to change that. We can't, that's just not a good business model.
You mean the company that was hiring you was 90% one company? Oh,
well,
okay.
So we're working for one company. 90% of our income is coming from one company. So basically, you don't want to be in that situation, because if that company decides it doesn't like you, you're pretty much out of business. Mm-hmm. So we set a model together, and John agreed that was a good way to do it. And so we never let a company get more than 25 to 30% of our income.
Okay.
So that's what we set about building. And then we started doing new technology. So for Terry McGowan, because we did the pipelines, we were riding with these guys, and they would talk to us and say, I can't do this, or I can't do that. I wish I could do this. So we never had an original idea, our group. We just kept our ears open and listened. And they came back. They wanted to find gas leaks. They're having a real problem. In the summer, it was easy because it kills a pretty good chunk of grass.
Okay.
After it's leaked for
you can see it when you're flying over.
You can see it, yeah. But only in the summer. So winter and everywhere else, they just had no way of knowing. And so many of the lines had been in for so long, they had small pinhole leaks.
Okay.
So I started talking to a couple of engineers, and that led to talking to a guy down in New York. And we ended up bringing on a thermal camera because I thought it should work. But our first stab at it was in the winter, because Terry said, well, you talk the talk, now let's see if you can walk the walk. He set a couple of leaks out with propane and cracked the propane tank and then ran a line in the ground. So we didn't know where the actual leak was.
Okay.
So we're flying the lines. But you have to remember, this is an R22 and it's a handheld unit. So I'm in a skidoo suit and Murray's in a skidoo suit because there's no heat in this thing. And we're flying along and the door's off because I've got to stand on the side.
Okay.
And we find the leak, and that's all Terry asked. He says, do you drive me to the leak after we landed? Mm-hmm. And when I drove him to the leak, he says, you got a contract. Yeah.
Wow.
And that's how it started doing more technological work. So we did that. We got into surveys using satellites before anybody believed it possible. So as survey companies said it'll never work, we were doing work for AOSPL, Alberta Oil Sands Pipeline. Okay. And they were up there trying to find, as they put the Smart Pig through, we're trying to find locations from the Smart Pig as to where the pinning was or the holes were. And they were digging up 33 feet as the length. So they were digging up sometimes 300-400 feet of line to find this thing. Yeah, we started using GPS surveys. It was pretty archaic in those days because you had to wait for the satellite constellation to come in. So you'd
Okay.
work for 40 minutes and then you'd shut down for 2 hours because the satellites weren't in place. Then you set up your base station and go again for 30 minutes. But the end result was it proved extremely accurate. When they were digging, they were within feet of the, within 50 feet of finding the leak now. So it cut their workload down dramatically. And
How did you use satellites to find it?
so basically GPS, when the GPS system works, when you set up your GPS, originally when it happened, you would have a light that would come on and it would say not enough satellites. So it would kind of it would guess to where your position is.
Yes.
But if you lock into, you have a group of 6 satellites where you have a continuation of 4,
Yes.
you can get extremely accurate positioning, but you had to come from a base station that was logging those satellites. So if one of them flew out of sight, all of a sudden your accuracy goes off. So one guy's monitoring the stations, and because the satellites are in a geo-organized
They're not perfectly spread
orbit,
out. Yeah.
exactly. You've got, but they do know where they're at. They can tell you the times that you can do it. So you can look ahead in the day and say, I've got a window of an hour here. I've got a window of 30 minutes here. I've got a window of, so you plot all these windows first, and then you set about doing that. Now, the truth in the pudding was the base station. So as long as it's tracking 6, so you always have 4 hard ones,
Okay.
you were okay. So the minute he dropped off of 6, he would call you on the radio station, you got to stop.
So I can see that you had the GPS tracking, but how are you using the GPS tracking to monitor the pipeline or the gas line?
The line, so they have lineman sheets where the line is. So you're flying with your GPS location. They give you a specific position.
Okay.
So the smart pig, they estimate where that pinhole is, that leak or the corrosion spot they want to dig up and do.
Okay.
So they estimate where that is, but they can't geoposition on top of the land accurate enough.
I see what you're saying.
So all you had to do was position the flag, that pin. So you would just drop a pin on that spot, and now they could do it on the surface, come in, and that's where they would dig. Now, instead of digging up 300 or 400 feet of line to find it, they were digging up maybe 25 each side. So they had a 50-foot window.
So, and just so I can understand, and the listeners can understand, so there'd be a line, and a pig is a sensor in the line inside the tube.
Yes, it's a smart, and it's indicating. So corrosion happens within the line, or they have areas of the line where there are leaks, so it's constantly monitoring the line as it goes through. It's a smart pig, so all that data comes back, and then they give you all these positions. Well, like they said, it's wonderful to have 300 positions, but where are they?
Absolutely. So you were able to work the data that the pig would present with satellite positioning.
Data.
So you go right to where the problem is.
And the surveyor said it can never be done. The survey company that was using the stuff, one summer, I think we did, I think it was 300 points, and like 299 of them were within 50 feet.
Oh my God.
And the survey company then looked at our system, and a year later, we had lots of competition in the field for it. So we were always trying different things. But we never came up with any of these ideas ourselves. It's because we were running with these guys, and they would say, boy, it'd be nice to do this or nice to do that. And even so much as pipeline crossings, just photoing. So you could look from one year to the next to see if there's any movement in the bank. We got so good with geopositioning, the satellite data. We even did some for them where there was fissures starting. They'd actually pinpoint the fissures, and then the next year you do the same thing, and you could see that it migrated a meter or 2 meters. So they started utilizing the stuff, but helicopters are expensive. So it gets to the point where absolutely, if you can do it from the ground, you can do it cheaper, which a lot of people move to. But it's the technology that interested us to get done. And it was fun. It was, and the pilots too. They were always interested in trying something different for it. So it worked well. Mobile, we operated Mobile Liège field, and Mobile Liège was a gas producing operation. And they basically, it's so remote, sometimes it would take them on a quad 3 hours to reach a well.
Wow.
So if a well goes down in the field and it freezes off, now it's down for a long time till you can get in there to unthaw it and get it back on production. And sometimes when you shut these wells down, it takes a long time to get production back.
Mm-hmm.
So we devised a system because it was so remote. We said, well, what about having a helicopter operator? Because now I can reach your whole field within 10 minutes from home base. It's so easy to fly out in the helicopter. And they thought, well, it's just too darn expensive. So I went to Calgary to try and sell it on them. And they looked at it and they said, we just, the helicopter. I said, but you're not thinking about what the production costs you're saving. So if your production goes down and it's 67%, well, it was roughly 60 to 65% was the average production in the fields at the time. Because of downtime with wells, certain things go wrong and everything else. In any event, I convinced them afterwards. The deal was that if we couldn't save money, then we'd cut the helicopter bill in half after a winter of trying to prove it.
Mm-hmm.
So we went up there in the field, and I think it was a year. It was actually a year. So we got a summer and winter because they were concerned about both. The winter flying conditions, and in the summer, they thought that they could do it cheaper on the ground.
Okay.
So after the year, we had improved their production that more than covered the cost of our total operating. Mm-hmm. So they were the first company to buy in. Now we see it all over up there. In fact, Norm, one of the guys that was actually the leader for mobile up there, he ended up joining our organization and expanding it because it was so cost effective.
Okay.
I missed my calling because I should have said, well, we'll take half the production. But the end result is it proved another method to use helicopters, but you just had to think differently. Instead of an hourly rate, it was more, what's the total help? So in the summertime, when you're on a quad, plus the dangers of it, it's taking you 2 hours to get to this well, whereas 10 minutes to get by flying. Well, I could see all the wells in the summer before lunchtime. Mm-hmm. So you can tweak them and keep them operating, whereas you were just constantly chasing a down well before. So production increased, which we had estimated would happen. We didn't expect it would be so lucrative, though, to the companies. So,
yeah.
It
sounds like a lot of stuff you did was because you talked about the gas detection, the satellite. This is all efficiency. It's all
always.
You just took whatever was there and just made it more efficient because you can get there on a quad, but you can do it better in a helicopter.
But the helicopter costs you $400 an hour, and people are offsetting. They look at that and say, well, it's impossible, but you're right. So it takes me basically all day to do 2 wells. Well, I did all 30 wells in 3 hours, but they don't think like that. And when you're dealing with a lot of operational managers up there, they base it on what the current cost is. So, for instance, we developed a heliportable rig and fly-in coil tubing unit and all that stuff because it just kept growing that section. But it was hard to explain to the field guys, whereas Calgary understood if I bring that well on, so a well would go down and maybe it's just a pump. We designed a well that 80,000 pounds pull. So it's not a big rig, but it's big enough to, pull up the joints, change the pump and put it back in.
Okay.
So if that goes down in June and you got a pretty productive well, you're out until it freezes up because you can't get a service rig in until then.
You can't drive.
You can't drive.
Because a lot of people don't.
So remote. This stuff, you'd fly
and wet.
Very wet. Yeah, in the summertime, the muskeg, people don't understand that have never experienced it. You don't drive on this stuff, not even with a quad, not with a Bombardier tracked vehicle. Nothing goes on these things. So we would fly into these rigs because remember, they built these leases to build the pad. The road to get there was done during the winter. So when summer came, it melted out and it's just muskeg.
So if it's down for months on end.
Absolute to winter. And usually, so winter, September, October, it's November, December before you can actually enough frost in the ground to get a rig on. So you've got 6-7 months of production. So trying to explain to these field guys saying, well, you're just not going to get it up till November, December.
Mm-hmm.
But if I go in there now, I can have it up for May for you, and you get all this production out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And he looks at me and he says, yeah, but it cost me $50,000 for a job, and you're talking $250,000. I said, yeah, but it's all relative. What does a well do? He says, well, about $1 million a month. I said, well, how about I take half then, and I'll go do it for free. I'll just take half the production.
Yeah.
And the poor guy, I was finally getting smart by then, but the poor guy says, well, you're so sure you're going to bring it online, you better go down and talk to Calgary. Now we went down and talked to Calgary, and the guy originally just about bit on the 50%. He says, you'll take 50%. I said, it won't cost you $1. We'll go in there, but I get 50% of the production.
Yeah.
And they ended up doing the well. And at that Christmas party, they invited us up. And the area manager, who was so against it at first, we just gave him all the credit for doing it. And he got stood up in front of the company because he dropped his BOE cost. So they have a cost to get that barrel out of the ground.
Okay.
So this helped his BOE for his area. It really reduced the prices having all these online, and he had 3 or 4. But it's not that we didn't have problems. I mean, our first coil job, the thing let loose and ran to the bottom of the hole.
Oh, no.
So you have issues, but it's how you handle the issues.
Yes.
So I just took the managers. We all loaded up in a 407, and I flew them up to the job site, and they had 4 managers on site, and the guys were quite impressed. We solved the problem. There was some issues with our equipment. We got that solved too. Back on, finished up the job for him at no cost, and he gave us 10 wells.
Wow.
You know? So the oil patch back then was pretty nice to deal with, because if you lived up to your word or delivered a fairly high level of service, these managers had a lot of chutzpah. They could allocate a lot of money. So if you're saving the guy money and time and not causing a problem, and that's basically how we grow, and we wouldn't have done any of that stuff had it not been for somebody we're hauling around in the helicopter saying, boy, I'd like this, or I wish we could do that.
Cool.
Yeah. So it was interesting. It was constantly changing. And, you know, as people left, we didn't lose a lot of people, but people were always concerned about, when you're doing a technology company, about the guys leaving. And we didn't really worry about that because we're moving forward so fast. They can take today's idea, but you can never take tomorrow's idea. The problem with losing valuable people that know your technology is when you get into a rut and you're not growing anymore. So if you're not creating anything new, eventually you're creating your own competition.
Just you're training other people to go elsewhere and do the same thing.
And you can't blame them for doing that. I mean, if you're not meeting their needs, I mean, most of the managers, like when we left, when I finally sold out, a lot of the managers ended up coming, well, not with me, but they left too. But I helped them start their own businesses. And they were all little businessmen. A lot of them were just young businessmen. And as long as the environment was conducive to them feeling like they're moving forward, they were interested in being part of it. But when you get to the stage where an accountant's running it, all he's interested in is trying to maximize the profits, minimize the costs. But he very rarely do accountants look forward at it. And we found towards the end that was starting to happen in systems. And the companies we're working for were doing the same thing. No forward vision. So if you explain to an accountant about, for instance, I can save you the money, they'd say, well, that's not guaranteed. But if I cut it or shut that well in, that's guaranteed. It only cost me $50,000. I won't get into trouble for that. So you lose a lot it takes visionaries to deal with visionaries. It makes the job a lot easier. So as accountants came in, it got tougher and tougher because they're like a lumberjack. They cut 10% of the tree each year, and everybody as a shareholder says, oh, you're doing great. But then when all of a sudden things expand, they can't expand. They don't have the people. They don't have the quality. So we used to joke about the 407 has 2 rear-facing seats. And when we went anywhere, we'd give the accountants the 2 rear-facing seats because they're really good at seeing what a company's done, but very poor at seeing what's coming.
Yeah.
We tried to keep our pilots looking forward and they were to bring back. Like when they finished flying with guys, we'd honestly debrief asking them, did they have any suggestions? Do they have anything that you can't do that maybe we could do? But it built up to 60 aircraft when we sold out, and roughly 230 people. So we got into things we shouldn't get into, but we backed out. We started a airline service, 748. We bought Amico's 748.
The Hawker Siddeley?
Hawker Siddeley. Yeah, it's a big unit, 40 passenger. And we converted half of it to cargo because one of the companies up there was going to bring us cargo, and it came through all the bases. So it left Calgary, went to Whitecourt, Grand Prairie, up to Rainbow Lake. And my idea was that as these guys step off the flight, the helicopter would be ready. So they could get done in one day, what quite often would take them, if they drove up, would take them at least a day to drive up. Then they were out in the field for a day and back for a day. So, there were 3-4 days, again, realizing time is money. And the system did carry itself, but it wasn't utilized the way I had envisioned.
Okay. And
it probably wasn't the aircraft. It was a little too expensive. And unfortunately, the cargo contract that was promised never materialized. So 50% of our work was going to be cargo, and that never came. So,
and it's whenever you have a new business and someone says, we're going to give you this work, you go acquire the aircraft and you set it all up. That's a big portion of it.
Especially in the oil patch. And that's the word that started changing. Prior to that, if someone said, yeah, we'll give you the contract, you didn't even get it signed.
You don't need the paperwork.
You didn't need it. You're just dealing with honorable people. And like I say, when the accountants got in, then it was a different story. These, unfortunately, and I call them accountants, but they're just numbers people that don't realize that, like I used to tell my guys when we're building hangars, yeah, you can beat the guys down building a hangar, and we can get the hangar for $100,000 less. But the problem is he's going to be able to finish it. Is he going to be the guy you're going to hire on the next hangar? If I keep beating everybody down and my suppliers down, eventually they go bankrupt. And who am I going to use to service the unit? And it was so hard because some of my managers would say, I can get a better deal. Yeah, you can. And 2 years later, the guy's out of business. And I say, see what I mean? Like a fair price. And that's what we used to ask us, just give us a fair price. But when you find people that solve your problems as management, they're worth more than anybody else is paying. And that's what when we had the meetings, we kept showing guys that if somebody comes on as a contractor and you're constantly having to babysit them, do your job, then that guy's very expensive. But if I hire a contractor that does the job and he's not telling me what problems, he's just solving the problems, that guy has work forever with me, because it's just when you start hiring management, and when we would scale down, so you go through recession, the managers always point out all the little guys that should get fired. And it was easy for me because if I fire one manager, I keep 6 people. So I wasn't looking for people to fire. I was looking for managers that weren't doing the job. And it was far easier generally to move them.
That makes sense. And but the hard part about managers, I don't know if you did it any different, but it seems that you come on at a staff level and then you advance. If you do your job really well, you become a manager, but it's almost like the skill set of being a manager is completely not reflected in what your original job was. So you have a person that really needs to lead and be good with people kind of out of their skill set a lot of times. Is that accurate?
You're bang on. And there's a book out called The Peter Principle.
Okay.
And that's exactly what it states, is basically you're promoted to a level of incompetence.
Okay.
And the guy can be a great pilot and a poor manager. So the nice thing about the company when it was small, you were dealing with one guy had many hats. So you could see the guy evolving into that. The bigger the company got, the more often you choose a manager that you would have to change. But it's not the manager's fault. It's my fault because I'm putting it into a position. He wants to be a manager. He wants to grow with the company, but he just never had the skill set to do it.
Gotcha.
And it's like I keep telling people going to school, I said, the skill set of being able to deal with people is far, far more important than any education or degree on a piece of cowhide. Like if you can deal with people, you can move through the world with a lot less problems.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
It's all about that.
And speaking of the people, like so many people that we talk with that are business owners, one of the most challenging things for them is the people. Like, how's your business? Business is good, efficiency is good, product good, service good. But when it's managing the people, that seems to be one of the biggest common things I hear of all of our clients is the human element. And how did you work that into your business?
That's actually the key ingredient to success. You become, as you grow, you may be doing everything, but eventually what you are is just a people person.
Mm-hmm.
You got to put the right people in the right places. So every time you get a square peg in a square hole,
Mm-hmm.
it's just a huge win for the company. But you're absolutely right. And as you're promoting people who are really good at one job and not so good, because remember, when you bring people from within the organization, there's a lot of loyalty. These people have given you 4 or 5 years of work, and now you're moving into management. They appreciated that.
Mm-hmm.
When we first brought on the mediums, 205s, Transport Canada said, you got to hire outside. I want experience from outside. And I said, no way. I said, they're going to come from inside the organization. I'll pick the best of the pilots, train them. If they don't make it, that's fine. I'll wash them out. But you won't tell me who's chief pilot, because as pilots, they just want bigger, better, faster.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to fly a bigger
Mm-hmm.
unit. And when you have the whole system there, you get the young guys coming in because one day they want to fly the bigger unit. Well, the system was eventually, when we finished, we brought in that Mi-26. And there was no chance for Canadians to fly it because of the way we brought it in. But Transport Canada, again, said when we first started, you won't be able to bring a Mi-26. It's a Russian helicopter. And eventually we had it. And I think it was Kamloops or Kelowna. Everything north of that, we could fly. We couldn't fly it south because we had to have permissions. And there was a lot of paperwork with it. But the ship worked fine.
And for those that don't understand, that's the biggest helicopter ever made, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
And it lifts, do you remember any of the specs on it?
So 92 fully clothed military people.
Wow.
So 92.
That's like a Boeing 737.
Yeah, it is about the same size. If you look at the two together, the cargo capacity is about the same size.
Wow.
It had the only pressurized cockpit.
Okay.
I'm not sure why you have a pressurized cockpit in a helicopter, but I mean, the unit burned 3,000 liters an hour. So Russia built some great equipment, and it was used by the UN, and its dispatch reliability was over 90%.
Wow.
We used it. I don't remember a breakdown.
Wow.
We did have to change the crew. I mean, the one crew came in, were not professional, and Russians do like their vodka. That's definitely true. The second crew, very professional, and we kept it for a year. And if that Mackenzie Valley pipeline had gone in, it would have been on it.
Mm-hmm. And the reason can you explain why you brought that helicopter in and what it did?
Oh, it's just, again, it's back to your efficiency. So a Chinook, those twin-rotored 234 is the biggest one in North America. So the Boeing Chinook is what the military have down there. And it lifts about 20,000 pounds.
Okay.
So this lifts about 42,000 pounds. So you're talking, if you're dealing in a pound basis, half the cost to get that pound of metal to where you're going.
Yes.
So we never looked at flying from the point of view of ego. I just want to fly a bigger helicopter.
Yes.
If it was efficient. So same with the contract operating. The helicopter was just a method. If they'd had a flying lawn chair that was cheaper, that's probably what we would have been using. I love flying. I mean, flying's has given us a wonderful life and a wonderful career. Don't regret it's the loss of my son in flying, but I can also say he went doing what he loved doing.
Absolutely.
So, no, flying has some wonderful memories, and so much of the family are still involved in it. So
that's really cool.
Yeah.
That was awesome, Eric. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, that's the start of it. I mean, we were probably the biggest operation we got to be the third largest helicopter company in Canada.
Wow.
But
about 60 aircraft, you said.
64, I think, is when we sold out 64 aircraft.
And you had, can you share that you had the Robinsons, the Bells,
we had Robinson, Bell 206s, we had Hughes 500s, the 500Ds. We had A stars right up to the B3. We had 205s. We had, from a helicopter perspective, the Bell 407s. But the Robinsons were always probably our most efficient. If I was to say the most efficient helicopter in the fleet, absolutely the Robinson.
Okay.
For $1 for the pound it moved and for the cost of operating, it was extremely efficient. And many people felt that we'd go bankrupt at it, but we ended up being the third largest helicopter company in Canada. And we had fixed wings. So from the 748, we had King Air. We had quite a few 206s. We bought a new Caravan. I tried to stay to newer aircraft, and people used to complain that it's a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. But you have to remember that if you're buying assets in a growing market or economy, that the value of the asset holds very well. So my idea of business, rather than buying 2 old 206s, I'd buy 1 new 407. The Caravan, we could have gone and bought an old Twin Otter or probably even an old Caravan. And maybe from an efficiency point of view, but we bought so many aircraft and used aircraft, finding out problems later on. And we thought we had pretty good engineers. We had 40 some of them. And even at that, the odd time you get caught. At least with new, I've got warranty on everything. So, for instance, our 407s, when we picked up 2 407s from Bell, they were trying to get them out. And my agreement with them was that they look after anything that becomes a requirement that the factory issues an AD or service bulletin on. I determine whether or not it's got to be replaced. So they had a cracking firewall. And I would just replace things. I'm hauling some pretty expensive guys here. So whenever something come in that's iffy, I just deemed it replaceable. And the poor Texas guy on about the 3rd firewall they sent up, he said, "Oh yeah, I know those machines. They're the most expensive parts machines in their whole fleet." But the reason of my thinking was that, stop drilling a firewall doesn't work for me. I mean, the firewall is a unit to prevent the fire from moving to the passenger compartment when these guys are expensive. So sure, a firewall stops or a drill hole stops the cracking, but it destroys the integrity of the firewall. So my agreement was, and they pulled it several times. They said, "Oh yeah, okay." I had to show them because, and that's why it was there, because it was new and they were so sure of it. But there were a lot of issues. That thing was supposed to be, they said 300 hours between inspections when they sold it to us.
This
That's
is the
what it was supposed to
407.
be, the 407. And when I sold them, I think it was 25 hours. They had inspections.
It's a big difference, hey?
Big difference. So from a cost, because remote, and it gets back to exactly what you said, it was being run like a business. So everything has to work on efficiency. And efficiency was what kept you growing and kept things going. So we couldn't lose sight of that. And there's always people willing to take the job. I mean, we saw so many people start up and so many people fail because they'd start with old equipment. They'd buy the equipment because it's cheap, but it's never acquisition cost that kills a company, in my opinion. It's always operating cost.
Gotcha.
So acquisition cost, you do a pretty good model. Most businessmen are smart enough to realize that if it costs $10, I got to make $11.
Yeah.
That doesn't take a lot of brain power. But when you get to the stage where your cost of operating, which you planned for 200, but now it's 400, seeing lots of those guys go belly up. And that's just an experience thing. So you're always trying to buy things where operating cost, which new gave me warranty. I had 2 years of parts and labor, and that helps a lot, guys. I mean, if the industry is so sure they're selling you a product that's that good, they'll give you a pretty good warranty. But by used, you don't have that protection. And my problem was I wanted the minimum amount of equipment to have, but I needed dispatch reliability at the highest rate. So the only way to do that is with a new aircraft or relatively new aircraft. Because my client doesn't understand. When I call him and say, "I can't come Tuesday like I promised," he just calls me a liar and hires someone else. And that, thank goodness, touch wood, didn't happen. The other thing we didn't do is we didn't chase forestry.
Okay.
We told the oil patch that's where we hung our hat. We said we would be looking after them because they always had flying companies, but they disappear in the summertime because it's so lucrative.
Yes.
So when I did contracts with them, I guaranteed that if the machine was even working for forestry, it would come back to do their job. So there's lots of times I would pull a machine off of a forestry contract, say, no, it can't go on a renewal contract. It's done on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd tell me I'm never working for them again. And
But you're keeping your word to your original contact.
you had to. Yeah, your word is everything. Yeah. And back then it really, really mattered.
Mm-hmm.
And once they realized I did that, so then it's Shell, it's Esso, it's Mobil. All of them hear about it. It's a small, small community.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that word is as powerful these days?
Well, I don't think so because they've decentralized things. So now, for us anyways, everything started moving to Calgary. Prior to that, $1 million decisions, multi-million-dollar decisions were made in the field.
Okay.
So where guys understand what your word is, no different than you go up and deal with a trapper in Fort Vermilion.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, yeah, he's coming to get you in his boat on Thursday. It'll be a cold day in hell if he doesn't show up on Thursday to get you.
Right.
It's just a guy. Right. So you go down to Calgary, do the same thing in the bow, and the guy says, oh, I had a better client over here. And so I went that way today. Mm-hmm. And it's not people. It's because they've been able to make a go of it that way. Mm-hmm. If there was enough competition in there, you'd have to maintain your word or you're out of business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's good.
So I do like dealing with northern people because generally speaking, their word is a bond and it's important to them. Mm-hmm. So, and there are people everywhere. Yeah. But I'm not sure that the guys in the field have as much say anymore. So everything goes through Calgary. And again, this is that accountant thing. I want to control everything. Mm-hmm, so if I can save 10 cents here and 10 cents there. And I think that's the wrong approach to doing business. There's, I call it tripping over dollars, picking up pennies. Because basically, for a hangar, for instance. So I hire the cheapest guy to build my hangar. He gets 3/4 of the way done or even halfway done. Says, Eric, I got to have more money. There's just no way. Yeah. No, you just contract, you do it. He goes bankrupt on my thing. So he's 3/4 of the way through. Now I got to bring somebody in to finish it. I guarantee you that no matter what the most expensive price you had originally, it's going to cost you more than that. Mm-hmm. So again, back to that adage that we got to pay people a fair price for a fair job. And when clients realize that, when our suppliers realize that, I never had a problem. I mean, Frank did more for us, I believe, than he did for any other dealership in the whole world. But we worked so closely with Frank in regards to building aircraft, improving them. And I told Frank originally that I would never sue him as long as it wasn't something he knew about in the factory that caused the problem. Mm-hmm. So an interesting anecdote for Frank was he was just getting going on the 44s and he was trying to build a market. He was really close. So on the 22, when he first got it certified, he came within probably a week of being bankrupt.
Okay.
And his test unit crashed in the water and he had to find it. He couldn't find it to prove it. Anyways, talk about a wing and a prayer operation getting going. And Frank, I mean, he worked for a Skyhook program for Cessna. He worked for everybody. And when he proposed to Hughes that there was a market for a two-place, they laughed at him. So I give him credit. He went out and started on his own. I mean, a little hangar. He made the blades, the size he made the tail rotor blades on the R22 was because that's what fit in his stove so he could bake them. You know, it was just, it got to the point where I'd go down there some years and every piece of equipment was owned by somebody else because he had it out of his name because he was so close to the edge all the time. You know, he was a very interesting guy and a damn good engineer. I think a terrible salesman, but a great engineer. But he had made these 44s and we helped him design a lot of the 44s, especially the new ones, fuel injected ones. But when he was designing them, he had 3 of them in the US, 4 of them, and one crashed. One did a low flyover of an airport. The guy pulled up, did a 0G, blades cut it off, and it was a lawyer's son, I think, that had the accident.
Okay.
And Frank pulled them all back and said, I can't have another accident or I won't be in business anymore. And this lawyer eventually was suing him, trying to get part of the company. It's a great aircraft. The problem is that it's a low cost, so you're getting a lot of people in their low pilots. So when Frank first started we tried to improve the safety aspect of the unit. We did a safety study up here in Canada because we were trying to get the oil patch, and they had left the piston fleet and gone to turbine only.
Mm-hmm.
So Petro-Canada was our first, Hal Rainforth was the first guy that allowed us to look at it. So he had his engineer. I took a R44 down. He stripped it down in pieces. I had to get my engineers in to put it back together. But they eventually gave us permission. They were amazed at how simple it was. But back to Frank, those 3 ships, he called me up and asked me if I would take them. And I said, yeah, I'll take them, but only if any changes we make to them, you'd adopt on the assembly line. So we picked up serial number 06, 07, and 09.
Wow.
And the units, when we got them up here, I mean, there were constant things. I think we made about 17 different mods to the aircraft that Frank adopted in the line, making it better. But over that time, he began to trust us a lot. So we then got to a lot of involvement in, say, the Raven 2. So when he started looking at the fuel injection, Frank looked at a turbo normalizer, he called it. So what I didn't want to lose is the TBO times.
Mm-hmm.
So the turbo normalizer would allow us to we needed a machine to go to 6,000, 7,000 feet with the load. And it was having a problem. In fact, the R22 was probably better at altitude than the R44 was. But the Raven 2 with the fuel injection proved that the turbo normalizer wasn't needed. He just fuel injected, tuned the exhaust, and did a few other things. And we got the power we needed. But credit to his genius, that wastegate system would have probably given it more time, probably worked out for him. And what he was going to do with the turbo was have the turbo only kick in at higher elevations, not all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But then you're doing something different in the industry, and getting approvals, as you know, is a pretty difficult thing. So when he came up with it, he sent me a note, said, you got to come down and fly this. I think we've got the aircraft. So it flew beautifully, but it's a test unit. And at that point in time, Frank says, we've done all this work, but I don't think there's a market for it. And it just shocked the hell out of me because we could see so much work.
Yes.
But Frank works at sea level. That's where his flying
California.
That's where it is, California.
Yeah.
So he just can't see this being needed. And I said to him, well, I'll take 10. He says, you'll buy 10 now. I said, yeah, I'll put deposits on 10 ships. This is gonna work. And Frank, through that, I didn't have to put deposit on 10. I did put deposit on a couple, but Frank says, no, we'll give it a try and see. He said, but I don't expect this to be that good. So a couple of years later, I'm down the factory all year, and he's saying, oh yeah, and he's whining about it a little bit. But a couple of years later, it's like 4 on the line for every 144.
For the Raven 1.
Big difference in number 1. So, and that's all he makes now from them. But he was kind of kidding around. In fact, it was a time when he was just going through his second wife, Nancy. And I'm in his office, and I showed up and I asked him how it was on the assembly line. He said, oh, well, it's not bad, but it's pretty tough out there. So I said, well, I'll be back in half an hour. So I went down to the assembly line, and that's when I noticed there's 4 Raven 2s on the assembly line for every 1 Raven. So I walked back off his office, and he's got a real smirk on his face. He says, yeah, I had a pretty good idea. I said, yes, Frank, you sure did. Yeah, he was
great.
Interesting. We had a great working relationship. And, I don't think people realize the world doesn't realize how much he changed the safety aspect of helicopters. I mean, I bought new Bell, been to the Aerospeciale factory, we've bought lots of the 350s, but I don't know, even Cessna, fixed wing wise, I don't know of anybody that was honestly as concerned about safety as he was.
And the people in it.
He really was. And that safety course that he brought in line, amazing. And I'm sure that if you look at the numbers, he's done more for the aircraft industry of forcing that issue, I think, than any other manufacturer I've dealt with in 50 some years now. So we've dealt with a lot of manufacturers with it. Kurt did a great job of continuing it on now that he's no longer there either. You know, we'll see what happens. They've got that new R88 coming out, and yeah, there's areas there I'd like to see some changes, but we'll see if it gets to the stage. I'll be long gone and not able to fly by the time that gets approved, but I love to see the dreaming. Dreaming is part of moving forward.
Makes it fun.
You got to have dreams to go for. So, yeah.
Back, you have a funny story about going down to Frank and trying to negotiate a price.
Oh, yeah.
What was that one?
Yeah, Frank. So I think I'm a big wheeler, and we got probably 15 aircraft at the time, and I'm ready to buy 4 or 5 aircraft. So I go down and I'm talking to him about buying 3 of them. And I said, you know, Frank, I said, I'll buy 4, but I want a discount on the 4th one. And Frank looks he doesn't skip a beat. He looks across the desk, says, Eric, go buy it someplace else. And I looked at him, I says, Frank, I said, you know, you're the world's smartest engineer and you're the worst salesman I've ever met. I mean, I just feel like every time I get no difference in price. I buy 4 or I buy 3. He said, well, you know what the price is when you came in the office, didn't you? He's quite a card, Frank was, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
But yeah, we developed quite a long-term working relationship, and I appreciate everything you did for me. But even to the date, you didn't leave a ship. I don't care. 40 years as a dealer, I could not walk down there and says, I'll send you the check. Like, you pay for your ship before it leaves the factory, and it doesn't matter if you need parts. You pay for it beforehand. It's a great business model.
Yeah.
Nothing leaves this factory that's not completely paid for, and didn't matter who you were. Yeah.
Yeah.
He knew I would have sent the check when I got back there, but it just didn't matter. No, you forgot your check, go home. Yeah. I remember one person was, obviously he was a pretty wealthy guy. I think he was out of Seattle, and he had come down, had a special ship made and lots of special stuff on it. He came in and, he was supposed to pick up his ship. So everything's set up for taking up the ship. And Frank had a safety course, and he had basically a policy that you could not take the ship without taking the safety course. Well, this guy had come down and he hadn't taken the safety course. And I met him. He was coming out of Frank's office or in the waiting room while I was waiting to see Frank. Anyways, he was so mad. He was cussing and just right pissed off. Frank wouldn't sell him the thing. And Frank actually went up to accounting, wrote out a check for his ship and handed it to him, said, you get the course, you come back, you can buy a ship, but it won't be this one. And this guy was just livid. He honestly thought it was just money and I could talk to anybody. But when Frank put the rules down, those were the rules for everybody.
But they're for safety.
Absolutely. And you can understand why guys, I mean, the worst guy you can train is a businessman with get-home-itis. I mean, so many of the accidents over all the years were that guy pushing weather, trying to get-home-itis, they call it. And it's never one thing, just 3 or 4. Now all of a sudden he's low on fuel and it's dark. And they don't have the experience to break that chain. So they keep going till they can't.
Because they've been trained, their business success is going through walls. I got an obstacle, I'll go through a push.
Absolutely. That's their whole total success. So they just assume aviation is the same thing. If I push, I'll break through. And it's the worst thing you can have. And I mean, when I used to instruct and guys would get their fixed wing license, if they were business guys, I'd tell them, go get an instrument rating. It's not if, it's just when they're going to fly into cloud, pushing it. And they can fly. And there's some really good business guys that understand limits out there.
Absolutely.
But there's a lot of guys that the skills that got them to where they're at kill you when you're using them in flying. So, yeah, no, it's a wonderful career. I mean, we've been blessed for a lot of years to be able to do it. And as far as I'm concerned, the Robinson and all the aircraft I've flown is probably the best aircraft. When I look at this, because I was part of the safety tests of when it was done. If 4 feet was a drop height, Frank did 8 feet.
Gotcha.
Like he just took the parameters from the safety aspect, the crash-worthy seats, all the stuff that was there. Frank honestly cared. And when I said earlier that he was probably one of the guys that was most interested in safety, and he just assumed every pilot's a dummy.
Mm-hmm.
So he tried to make the aircraft basically, if they lost control, it would survive. And they had a lot of accidents, but I believe it was because they were young.
Mm-hmm.
You got a real group of pilots coming in to buy it that have 50 hours. Well, how many 50-hour pilots go out and buy 206s or 407s or A-stars? Not very many.
Yeah.
You know, the odd one.
Yeah.
But you have a big group that can get into flying helicopters because of the Robinson. So you've got a young. So we did our safety study up here, and we did component failure. So we did the hours and component failure. We had to do it to try and get Petro-Canada to accept it.
Okay.
So back to that accident when Hell took it apart, I presented him probably 40 tables of accidents and whether it was part failure, was pilot error, and all through the system. And when he looked at it, he was amazed. Frank took a lot of that stuff, and you'll see it in his accident criteria. He's used that for his safety aspect, because when we got Petro-Canada to move from a turbine only policy to, say, the helicopter with pistons again, we were the only one. So Hal approved it. You could fly in pistons, but you could only fly with Aerial Recon.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't fly with anybody else. Eventually, people all got to we got that solved, but it took a long time.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just
pretty cool.
Yeah, a fun ride. It's been great people, and I still see there's lots of these guys I still run into that are running their businesses now that work for us or have heard of us.
Yeah,
we sold a lot of ships into Canada, and I think we honored our word. I had people come in and buy from me that bring a briefcase of money, like just amazing trust on people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still blown away by, I talk to people and they want to buy this aircraft and they wire us $1 million.
Yeah.
And the level of trust that's been developed since 1985 through your word, through my word.
Absolutely.
That there's no concern that there's anything dirty going on. It's just,
oh, Luke, I hear guys, and I've never heard anybody complain, like, you're doing a better job than I did. You look after the customer better than I do. I was running a business too. So, I learned from Frank, you want it? Come and get it. You know, that's basically it. Now you do so much to make it smoother for them. But I'll tell you, some of those guys that buy from you probably wouldn't have bought from me because, I can get shipped, send the money, stop bugging me, send the money, and I'll get it ordered for you, you know. And the service level of that you've brought in this industry to, I think the very fact that we've been at this, 1985, how many years is that? Yeah, and you've got that total history. So, and we've sold all over Canada, some other places in the world, but most of Canada. And I think at one time I had 196. I'll bet it's a lot more now that you're there.
Yeah.
So now you're selling these aircraft 2 and 3 times. They've been up here. People have used them. And it is a wonderful, wonderful ability. If you've never flown in a helicopter or your own helicopter, the sights you see visions you get.
Yeah.
Nobody makes anything more beautiful than God has made in the mountains and in the country to see. And this allows so many people to experience that. And the fact you're reselling these helicopters shows how relatively safe it is. I mean, I think of Vern, for instance. I mean, here's a guy that was 65, finally decides he's going to fly. Says, first asks, can I fly? And equipment operator does a great job at flying.
Hands,
I mean,
good hands.
Good hands, but the learning skills are the hard thing is the test. But as far as this guy ever get in trouble with the hands ID, you say, well, no, he's pretty safe that way. And yeah, you look at people like that getting the experience. Then he ends up buying a bigger aircraft and flying to watch the polar bears in Hudson's Bay.
That's right.
Up to Alaska. And all the experiences he has had because of being able to fly. Yeah. And I get that a lot from people that I've sold to. One chap in Nova Scotia called back and was so ecstatic about his helicopter. Yeah. I tried to borrow it when I was out there one time to go. I wanted to fly the Bay of Fundy and see it from the air. But yeah, it's just, and you're meeting such wonderful people.
I agree.
Like these business guys that can afford it, and maybe our world above, but there's a real love for flying in a lot of them. And you can see that, and a love for life. And you get to experience people that are, I call them top shelf. I mean, like I say, guys would bring in a whole briefcase full of money. Says, there's your money. How much can I buy for it?
Yeah.
And we got to the stage where we'd sell the aircraft. We're bringing them in so many that we would sell the aircraft at 1,000 hours. So they're in our fleet. We're using them.
Mm-hmm.
The guy would give me a deposit on it. And I'd say, okay, it'll be ready next Wednesday. A new one come in, take place. We'd do an inspection on it, and the guy would come and pick up a used one. So it was just constant there. And the trust that people gave us as a company.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just couldn't understand how we could ever do anything to lose that. So, I mean, if a part had 20 hours and you could do 20 hours on it, people would change it out. I know lots of companies would change it out at 50 hours. They would leave it in there trying to get the 50 hours on it. And I would say, no, get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
Change it. It's just not worth it. We got this apart. It's cheaper to do it now. I realize it's a little more cost, but it's honestly cheaper in the long run.
Yeah.
And giving service in regards to Robinson's, it's why you have such a good name. I mean, you go down to the factory, everybody wants to see you. It's been that way since basically after 5 years, and they just don't get a lot of people that do what they say they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We bought a lot of aircraft from them, but they've delivered a service unlike any other manufacturer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, back when you're doing your original business, you're dealing with the oil patch, you're dealing with your clients, you're dealing with staff. And now we're dealing with our clients, our business people, helicopter companies, but it's all about trust.
Oh,
It's the most important thing is that trust.
so true. And that's what gives you longevity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know lawyers that said, I forget the Latin phrase, but there's one born every minute. That's not the aircraft business. And I'd sooner turn away guys, build long-term credibility, than end up selling a machine to someone that's going to kill themselves. And we have turned down guys. And they have bought other places. So, but the credibility, Luke, of what you've taken on, because basically it's been
15 years.
15 years.
Yeah.
You look at the letters, like the notes, and I used to get these letters. I always thought I wanted testimonials from the guys because I wanted people to be able to read someone else's experience. Not me. I'm a salesman.
Yeah.
So they read someone else's experience, and I look at all the notes in there from people for how you dealt. And that is a credit that'll keep you in business forever. And it doesn't matter whether you're selling Robinsons or cars or lemons. It's all the same. People look at that and say, I was treated so professionally. And yeah, you call a spade. And if the guy's dicking around, I mean, you call him out on it. But there's such a small minority of people like that. You get to deal with some people that have done really impressive things in their life.
Yeah.
And it's just fun being part of their life. You know, you deliver a helicopter and the guy 6 years later say, you got to come out here and fly it with me. You know, it's just a wonderful experience. These are first-class people, and it's so much nicer dealing up here than down here in the gutter. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's not a used car salesman system. It never was.
Yeah.
But I believe that living up to your word, and we had that saying all along when you came. It said, deliver more than you promised. And it's easier to say, okay, I'll deliver the ship. And when we delivered the ship, when we said there'd be 1,000 hours on it, lots of times there's 1,100 hours on it.
That's nice.
It's just, you always deliver more than you say. I hated going to a place that it'd be 1,000 hours and all of a sudden there's 900 hours only left on it. And you say, well, come on, guys. I mean, you told me you'd have 1,000 hours. Oh, everybody has an excuse.
Yeah.
But it's no different than the pilots. When the pilots said they'd show up, if I set an appointment, I'm going to be in Fort St. John at 8 o'clock to pick you up at your camp. I'm there at 8 o'clock or 5 minutes to. And you tell my pilots it takes nothing to be there 5 minutes early. It takes a lot to be there 5 minutes late.
Yeah.
And basically lied to them.
Yeah.
If I say I'm going to be there at 8 and I'm there at 8:05, I've lied to you. And yeah, I can have all kinds of excuses, but that's what they are. Excuses.
Then you start to lose trust.
So it was, and everybody we hired was like that. So originally I got to be the hiring guy.
Okay.
So I was chief pilot and everything. So you get a lot of that built up. Well, these guys used the same things I taught them to hire their guys. So the company, I mean, in all honesty, we had it happen. $50 bill drop in a waiting room, and it sits on a desk for a week before the passenger that had lost it comes in to get it.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
So the trust aspect is phenomenal when you can trust the people you're working with, but you have to from a flying perspective. So overspeeds, for instance, back when we started, there was no record of that. The pilot was supposed to record it. So you jump on a machine, and if you don't trust the pilot, how can you trust he didn't overspeed the rotor system?
That's right.
So it really is. People used to say, well, companies that we're working with or similar companies in the aviation business would say, I'm going to fire the guy. He had an accident. I would say, well, geez, he just gained a hell of a lot of experience. What I do is go flying with the guy. Does he make the same mistake, or is his method of getting to ABC bad? And there were guys where you come back and say, no, he'll make the same mistake. I mean, everything's an excuse.
Hasn't learned.
He hasn't learned. Say, you need to go. Then I'd take other guys up, and he would actually take you through the whole action, knowing exactly what he did wrong. And he says, gosh, that was so stupid and everything else. How can I afford to lose this guy?
Yeah.
He is never making that mistake again.
No.
And I'd keep the guy, and I'd have people come in, managers, and say, what the hell? I mean, you fire this guy, he's an instructor, and this guy you keep, he's just a farmer. And it was all an attitude. Attitude is everything.
So did you hire a lot for attitude and then build skill?
Absolutely. In fact, we got it wrong. On the contract operator, we got it all wrong. I hired pilots thinking they're the smartest guy out there, and we put them in as operators, and very quickly we realized we got it wrong. Okay. So we started hiring operators, training them to fly, and that flew like a jet. That was a perfect way to do it. Yeah. So no, I said we made lots of mistakes, but owning up to it and admitting it, like when that tubing unit went right to the bottom of the hole. I got all the managers up there, that even the guy that built the unit, and the guy said, that was impressive. All 5 guys there within 2 hours are all on site. I said, absolutely. This is our problem, not yours. I mean, because we told him we were coming up there to do a job. Doing the job, we screwed it up. So it's our job to fix this and make it right for him. We're already costing him time. He's not going to get the well back for 2 days. So, but having done that, again, it's back to that trust thing. Having done that, when I stepped off the job and the guy calls me and dresses me down as he should have, and was really impressed about how we handled the problem. Then he calls back and says, I got 10 more wells for you to do.
Nice.
That's the difference of giving. When you give the guy a machine that's got 900 hours, when you said it would have 1,000 hours, he calls back and says, hey, I want to trade up. I'd like to sell this. And you look at your repeat customers that you have built, and that's phenomenal. I wish I could, and I probably should have, when I started this, I probably should have set it aside. The Robinson dealership was so important to me when I sold out Airborne at the time. I kept the Robinson dealership because it was so much fun dealing with these buyers and owners of the machine. They really were the cream of the crop. And I know you find the same thing every time you meet somebody. It's positive to somebody that's come. A lot of them have come from nothing in their specific field of business. They were experts at what they did. They did just like us, but they're customer service oriented. I could not find one that grabbed that there's one born every minute philosophy. These guys all built their businesses one customer at a time. And most of them, you go back to the original customers and they're still saying good things about them. And that is honestly the way to build companies in the future. You may not be a 50 or $500 million company, but you'll be extremely successful. Yeah.
And I had to change my mindset when I started, because not coming from money, I had this mindset that all these rich people are assholes. All these rich people, they take from everyone. It's all about them. That was my mindset.
That's how they got it.
That's how they got ahead, is by taking from everyone. So I kind of had this built up mindset talking with these guys on the phone. But what happened is I met enough of these guys and girls that were so good, not only to me, but also to their staff, that I realized the reason they're successful is, like you said, standing on the shoulders of giants, is they've helped so many people, and you can't do it without other people. And so I had this huge mind shift of, oh no, these people are serving the most amount of people, and that's why they're successful.
And when you talk to them about their employees, they speak so highly of the employees. They don't like employees to them. Those are the successful people. They brought all these people along. I know. And we look at our governments, they say, well, we're going to tax the rich. Well, the rich give jobs. Now, go ahead. If Google's not bringing people up from underneath into the system, go ahead and do it. But the little company, he only gets ahead because somebody's willing to do your job. So I used to simplify it for the managers. Remember when I was pilot, baggage handler, dispatcher,
Everything.
fueler, you're everything.
Yeah.
Like you load this guy in, you sure there's lunch, you're doing it all. And I said, that's the level of service I never want to see not given to the next guy. So the only way you can move on is to find somebody that can do all that. And I found people that did it better than me. And as you get to a certain stage and you got these people, because you're activating their thought process too. They're saying, this isn't just a job. I'm not being told, I don't climb in the airline and say, I'm going to Hawaii and back. That's it. No, what you're there is to satisfy, if there's 320 people on the flight, you want them to have their best trip to Hawaii and back. And it's challenging the guys. So they would show up and the guys, they had a lot of leeway. I mean, they could go and buy 24 donuts. So I'm taking guys out and they're looking at a pipeline. You're going to stop every 2 hours. The guys would pick up donuts and coffee, throw in the back in the cargo hold, and they stop to get fuel. They let these guys out. They're sitting in a grassy spot someplace, and they're having donuts and coffee. And the guy says, we've never had this before. And what did it cost you? $10? Just about nothing. And to get people thinking that way. So my pilots would collapsible rods. He had a group of guys that really liked fishing. So his stop for lunch was near a rainbow stream.
Yeah.
And they'd stop and go fishing. Who do you think that guy's going to be flying with next time?
Guaranteed.
And that's all, when you challenge these guys and they're not stuck in a box, they've got some space.
Freedom. So
he sends a bill out for 2 collapsible fishing rods. And the first thing the accountant does is send it back. He walks into my office, he said, remember what you told me? I said, absolutely. It's covered.
Yeah.
And I'd have to go up to the accountant. You see, this is not something that an accountant would normally do because there's an extra cost to it. I'm trying to make the most I can from the job. He doesn't see the future. And so there were lots of times that happened, or wages, having specific pilots. I need $50 more. I'd say, okay, what has to be done? You got to get to work. Absolutely. They'd bring in 10 times the work for the $50 that we'd pay them. So when you get entrepreneurs, and I said earlier that all I had was a bunch of small businessmen working in my business, I enjoyed that. And people said, well, they're high risk. They can start. I said, absolutely. They can start their business and be successful virtually at any time. So it's my job to ensure they're happy here. And as everybody knows, you're back to your original thing. What is your biggest problem? Employees. It really is. But if all you're going to do is pigeonhole the guys and not let him use his gray matter to expand. I mean, it's interesting challenging some of these young guys to, for instance, seismic. When they come along, wants to build a seismic, we'll go at it. We'll support. And sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. You have to be the manager enough to say, you give it a college try. That's not going to work. What else can we do with this asset? Eventually it comes to that. Boardroom wise, there's lots of people that want to hear yes men in the boardroom. And I used to give the guys heck. I mean, if I'm the only one, I used to tell guys, if everybody's thinking and telling me my idea is good, someone's not thinking. Like, you want people to be brainstorming and not fear that their job's going to be at risk, especially a manager, because there's no way that I could know everything about maintenance or everything about anything. You each have a little bit of expertise. And by adding all that expertise, as you know, the cockpit resource management, you've been through those courses. You do cockpit resource management. And I did a course and it was kind of funny because the instructor threw in a janitor into our group. And I mean, oh yeah, this is a survival group. It's a survival group. And you threw a janitor in here, like this is going to help our score at all. Well, I had to eat crow. It definitely had to help the score. Like it just, everybody has some help.
And a role,
and that's the tough thing to get as a manager, is that you're not the only one there. everybody. And if you unleash their gray matter, you can build a pretty sizable company. And we did. We just grew too big.
You had how many staff again?
So 225 when we sold.
Okay.
So when we were about 15 ships and about 45, 50 people, that was a perfect size. We were efficient.
Okay.
You go through as a corporation, you build, you're really efficient with what you have, then you got to grow. So you buy all this equipment, your profits go down, and hopefully that equipment becomes profitable. You hit a peak again and it starts building. And we were most efficient there with the money turned. We weren't doing the 50 million a year we were when sold out, but we took more money home in our jeans. So, but again, it gets back to people. It's always people. When you get to about that 50 size, your job as manager is not managing the company anymore, business and everything else. It's putting the right people in the right place. And I can't emphasize young guys starting out enough. It's a skill set that is absolutely like flying. You cannot be bad at it. The very success of flying or running that business is that you put a couple of bad guys in and they can destroy the company. And it's having the ego, I guess, or not minimizing the ego to say, listen, you're going to make mistakes, but you got to be catching it before. So you want to catch the pilot before he flies into the dark and the bad weather have the chain of events. So you catch him coming in late one night, or you catch him low on fuel or doing something stupid. That's when you bring it to bear. And once they know the rules, you got to have pretty clear rules, but if the rules are there and they're enforced,
You have to be enforced.
They have to be enforced. It's like the speed limit. I ask everybody, being an ex-cop, I said, what's the speed limit? And they say 100. I said, no, it's not. If I get a ticket at 110, it's 110. They give you a $10 kilometer limit. That's what the speed limit is.
If the law is here, but they don't enforce it to that amount, it's whatever they let.
That's right. So when you say you can't do this or can't do that, unfortunately, you got to shoot that gun across the bow once in a while. But good people appreciate that too. Everybody appreciates knowing exactly where the areas are. Yeah. But no, it's a lot of fun. You've done a wonderful job, Luke, with the company. This is probably the most trying time since that luxury tax came in. I can't believe all because of a government law, you can cut 90% of your business, but that's basically what's happened. Not through any inability on your part to do it. People are still happy, but it's taken this new helicopter, and it's almost like that person you mentioned earlier, looking at them saying, they're rich, I'm going to take from them. They don't understand till they meet them that these are the drivers of your economy. These are the guys that build things. They create things. And when you systemize that, it's no different than grabbing the baking powder and pulling from the cake mix. So yeah, you got a cake. It looks like a cake and everything else. It may even taste like cake, but gosh, it's not rising. It's not coming up. It's just flat like fudge. And you have to have the right ingredients to it. And the entrepreneurs, in my estimation, don't get, and there's so many. I mean, how would you have heard of any of these guys had they not come to buy helicopters?
No,
yet they're
never.
extremely successful in their own rights. And you've seen them all across Canada. And all you got to look at and say, wow, there's so many of them. And there are every little community. And it doesn't matter whether it's a community of 5,000 or 500,000. There are entrepreneurs in all of them that have done so well at it. And a lot of it is the same mentality. But I guarantee that looking after the client, especially in the remote areas where your clients, you don't have as many turnover of clients, is really, really high in giving them the success that they enjoy today.
And we've dealt with entrepreneurs, because we deal with the entrepreneurs that purchase the aircraft that have a successful business. But then the other half of our business is the entrepreneurs that are running commercial operations. So on both sides, it's just entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. And it doesn't matter what you're doing. You can be a janitor or an entrepreneur. I know janitors have done really wealthy. In fact, the kids used to drive by all the time and ask me why the garbage man has the nicest house in Whitecourt. He just does it really, really well. Obviously, he does.
And he's willing to do stuff that other people aren't.
And there's a big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And is the service. Well, delivering on time with your equipment, being dispatch reliability. That's how we made it.
Mm-hmm.
So these people were so used to dealing with people that didn't do what they said they were going to do. I found it pretty easy to do what you say you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody coming in had to maintain that
Mm-hmm.
because it only takes one guy to wreck the pie.
True.
Yeah.
True.
So again, it's back to your idea of people. But entrepreneur, maybe that's where you want to start doing this.
Yeah.
You start hiring this stuff. Young guys getting started. How do they, if they don't have somebody to throw, they call it bouncing the ideas off the wall, you know, who do they have to brainstorm with?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
These are brainstorming sessions. But when you look at the success, and I'm sure as you're talking to people that have been successful, success is not about money.
No.
It's about finding in life what you wanted out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got a healthy family, and you're doing what you want to do, that's success.
You're winning.
Like it's exactly. It's so hard because so many people attach money to it. And there are so many people unhappy that have lots of money. So you really have to steam down what your goals are. What would make you happy?
Mm-hmm.
And that hurts sometimes when you look at it. You know, there's a lot of people that's money will make me happy. No. What do you want?
Mm-hmm.
But money will make me happy. And I can understand why people like that say there's one born every minute.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not, guys. The real true world is you use that attitude. I'll be surprised when I meet you at 65. You're a happy person.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and really in this life, all you have is service.
Mm-hmm.
So if you help people, that old adage of teaching people to fish instead of giving them a fish, it's really true. There's a lot of sayings that have deeper meaning that people just aren't using.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you, when you go back to all those businesses and you ask them about their service to their clients, and you went and talk to the first clients they had, the guy says, wow, yeah, no. When he was small, Pete would call me every day. Yeah, anything he'd do. And it's that level of service. And hopefully they've figured out what the win was.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them that are successful have. And that's what it is. But you're providing a service. And that's really all it was.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter. I used to tell the pilots, they're just cab drivers in the air. So you got to do it efficiently, safely. And the end result is always, the client's always right. So when you came down and said, how was the flight? How was great. Okay, you did a good job. If he's got comments of how to improve things, use it. But it's so easy to exceed people's expectations. So when I hire a helicopter, I don't expect coffee and donuts. A helicopter, there's no room for it.
Mm-hmm.
So how else can I do it? There's 100 ways to make their experience. Well, there's a beautiful waterfall over here. It's only 5 minutes, guys. Do you have time? Would you like to see it?
Yeah.
And the guy pays for the 5 minutes. Like this is just, it's a no-brainer. But doing something above and beyond is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when you're I'm starting to put together, when you were growing your business, what do you think were the most important parts to being successful? I see you had your decision making, you had your staff involvement, trust. There's a whole bunch of these components. What do you think were the most important parts? I guess including the market and the timing.
Well, lucky. I grade that on luck. There's a lot of us call ourselves an entrepreneur. I don't think I rate that, but entrepreneurs, it's all about time. They just happen to start their business at the right time and things were going up. I mean, I also experienced the 17, 18%. So if I'd experienced that after a full expansion, I'd probably not be here today.
And for people that don't know, there was a 17% interest rates.
So you're borrowing money. So
yeah.
I borrowed in and locked in and bought my aircraft in. But had I been caught in an expansion phase, so I had 6 or 7 aircraft at 17 or 18%, and then the business drops off. Mm-hmm. Wow. I mean, I don't know how good. I'd love to say I'm an entrepreneur, but I'm glad I didn't have to skate past that one. Mm-hmm. It just hit us at a different time. So there is a lot of luck, despite the guy saying it's everything about us. No, there's a whole lot of luck but as there is in life, when you go through a scene at a red light, so you go through green light, you go through. Next guy gets hit by a car. Mm-hmm. He says, "Well, that guy ran a red light." You say, "Well, what is it? It's timing." Mm-hmm. you went through, the next guy gets hit because the guy didn't see the red light or whatever. But life is like that. I mean, you try to adjust the sails, but you can't adjust the wind.
That's right.
The wind comes from a direction, you can adjust the sails. So as long as it's minor, that's great. But if a hurricane comes up that was never supposed to be there, guys, it's luck whether you're coming out the other side. And us entrepreneurs, a lot of us have had that luck on our side at some of these things happening. But if I say the one thing, it's always the customer. You have to hire good people. There's a lot of things you have to do, like good people and service, but it always comes down to the customer. If that customer that buys your first product or uses your services is happy with you in the end, and you have to ask them, say, listen, I need you to be honest. Is there something you saw that I could do? That's why the testimonial was. And I asked the guys, when I talked to them and asked for it, it was, now, I don't want you lying. If there's something here I can improve on, I'd honestly want to know. And that level of service to clients is what absolutely is the magical ingredients.
Correct.
Because you see guys going out starting, they run the same CAT, they run the same service. 2 years later, they're bankrupt. Why? Next guy comes in, but he takes Pete out and says, listen, yeah, okay, I need a little bigger one. I can't tell you how many times clients told me I needed this aircraft. No, and I'm supposed to be the guy that knows. So he comes up and says, well, geez, Eric, I'd like the 206. That's just too small for me. I need a 206. Well, Terry, geez, I'll buy a 206 if you'll give me $500. He says, yeah, go buy it.
Yeah.
But he's the one that told me to buy it.
It's not you making all the decisions. It's not you being the big boss.
It's listening to the client. When he said, hey, I can't find the leak in the summertime or in the wintertime, I can't find a leak. Sure, I get credit for finding the thermal system, but he's the guy that gave me the idea. I would say, well, how can I find a leak? Well, so he took me out on a leak site. He digs one up, and it's just a big ball of frost. So, I mean, I'm not a rocket scientist, so we're using heat guns to determine hot spots on fires so that they can put them out. Well, it must find a cold spot. If it finds a hot spot, it'll find a cold spot. So I just grabbed a gun and started, yeah, it does work. Then we
a little thermal gun?
With thermal gun.
Infrared?
So, yeah, liquid nitrogen. So you had to fill it every 20 minutes with liquid nitrogen. And then we get into issues. So then along the route. So a lot of people start business. They say, I'd never started if I'd known this. That's how we succeed. You start and then you find a problem. You solve it. You start. You solve a problem. And it just keeps going in steps. It never goes just straight up.
Yeah.
These guys say I started and it just was a windfall. I'd like to see the books. Yeah. It never.
I haven't heard that story with the hundreds of people we've talked with. I haven't heard that one yet.
So the leak system, and looked at that. Well, the sun reflex angle was, I think it was 3.4 millimicrons. So it was a reflected signal from a hot rock. So the way we got rid of that was we would take a filter. I got a guy in New York, design a filter for the camera and put the filter in front, and then we take out that wavelength.
Okay.
So you could run longer than anybody else. So they're shutting down at 7 or 8 in the morning. I'm running till 9 or 10.
I see.
So again, but it's back efficiency. What you're trying to do is getting the helicopter up to site is the expensive part. So if I can only work an hour, your costs are pretty high. If I can work 3 hours, and you understand efficiency. So it was just putting myself in the customer's shoes saying, okay, well, this isn't going to work. I need to do this. But he started me on and everything we've done has been that. It's just been a customer saying, well, I'd sure like this, or this can make it easier. And you'll find that if you go through life making people's jobs easier, especially people with control, you'll find a very busy person.
Yeah.
But all you're doing is offering a service. That's really all we're doing, whether it be a cab driver or a helicopter. You're just giving a service. So, and you've seen the people in the business. So you look at them and say, boy, it doesn't take much to beat some of these guys because they're still stuck in a world of those old ideas that there's one born every minute, or this guy needs an aircraft. He needs me. Nobody needs us. Like there's people out there offering all our services.
Yeah.
So you have to say, well, we must be doing something right if they keep calling you from all over Canada to get it. So yeah, and you never want to mess with that. Growing it is hard, but that's because of the economic times. There will come a time when I believe that if you stay your course is the hardest thing to do. You stay the course, everything else will fall into place. Yeah.
When you were going through business, I think another thing would be resilience is probably something you developed over time, and being able to deal with, like, make the hard decision and dealing with stress. I'm guessing, I haven't heard many of these stories, but was there times where you're like, holy shit, this isn't going to work?
Oh, I wish there was just a handful. Yeah. No, but you're right. You're absolutely right. The stress, I used to give an adage to the guys saying, it's really easy to be captain when the seas are calm.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can hold the wheel. But boy, when you're in the crew and you look up there and see someone you're not sure of and the seas are getting rough, you watch the uncomfortable crew. Yet you look up there and see a captain you trust. Doesn't matter how big the storms are.
What a difference.
And that's unfortunately the unflappable side you have to get to. And you do, because you start realizing that these guys are looking at you as to lead the way. So you go back to basics all the time. And when I used to do ideas, I would stick the idea. An old business guy told me, he said, stick it in a drawer, leave it for 2 weeks, and come back to it. If it's a good idea, it'll still be a good idea.
True.
And you're not being pushed into something or anything else. So that would be the case. So all the deals I did, I thought honestly had good basis. So it was easy to stand up for them when something broke or whatever, to stand up and say, no, we can fix that. When that tubing went to the bottom of the hole, the idea is good. Then obviously we've got a problem with the manufacturing of the product. So now that's why I took so many people out there, because not trusting myself or my partner, like I want engineering, everybody, let's look at it. This is why it failed. Can we solve that problem? And when you say, all get collectively in their brainstorm and say, yes, it is, then it's done.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's $2 million.
Yeah.
You solved the problem. So that's really what happened. So the guys and my managers saw that at a young start. I mean, when you're starting, you got the first helicopter. Believe me, these guys are just like you. They're doing 3 or 4 things at once. They're part of everything. And there were lots of times when we were saying, hey, we're thinking of expanding to Prince George, for instance. We'd bring the guys in, say, we're thinking of expanding to Prince George. You're from Prince George. What are you thinking? And it's amazing the input you get from people. So the storm's coming. And the captain calls up to the crew, says, hey, guys, we can turn around, but it's about 4 hours to port. I'm pretty sure that we're good here. We can handle this storm, but it's going to be rough. The crew just had their voice. I'll be surprised if that crew says, no, don't take the storm on, Captain. If the captain thinks he can make it and they trust you, they're on board.
Yeah.
And that constantly reinforces that the crew's not just there. And I suppose ships don't do that. They leave it up to them. But if I was running a crew, that's what I do, because collectively all these people will improve the decision making. And when they're involved, it's amazing how much pull they have in doing things, in seeing customers when they see them on the street or they see them at supper at night. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times a guy would turn in an invoice for a supper. And I said, who did you see downtown? He said, oh, I saw Bill and his wife. They were having supper, so I picked up the tab.
Nice.
But they did this they understood the system.
Yes.
And they had the power. Yet when I brought the accountants in, I mean, the accountants, the battle was constant.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys could not understand why we would do this stuff. And the more of an accountant he was, the more of a bean counter he was, the worse it was. And I use the adage that when you hire, and if I was running a company as the bean counter, that would be terrible. Everybody has strengths.
Absolutely.
And you got to put people in the right strengths. So people say, well, I could do everything. I couldn't do everything.
Because you still needed those guys.
Well, I use it as the adage for if I'm hiring an accountant. So I put a bubblegum jar on the counter with 500 bubblegum in it. I mean, a guy like me is going to count about maybe a quarter of them, times it by 4 and say, that's how many bubblegums are there. That's my accountant, the guy I'm hiring for accountant.
Yeah.
He counts it once. He counts it twice. I'm sure got the same number. He may even count it a third time just to be sure that they're all accurate. There's your accountant.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you went back to the people thing, and it does. So people and customers, your customers and your people are the 2 ingredients you can't screw with. They got to be the right people. The customers you don't have a choice for, the people you do.
Yeah.
And there will be customers, if they're abusing your people or whatever, that you're going to have to say, no, enough. And And I did. I mean, I told one guy to go find someone else. We'll work to the end of the month and it's time.
Yeah.
I mean, Clay Riddell was the richest man in Canada at one point in time. And I walked into his office and said, our equipment will be off in 30 days. And Clay looks at me and says, why? I said, Clay, because you're the worst guy to pay. I said, I'm not a bank. I said, some of our bills are out 90, 120 days. I said, I don't charge you to cover interest for that money.
Mm-hmm.
And Clay decided we were worth it, walked down, gave us exceptional status or special status.
I see.
And our payment was within 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
But if people are taking advantage of your company, you have to draw a line in the sand.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you'll continue. You go bankrupt because the money, you're borrowing the money, your rate is less than what it's costing you to have that money out for 120 days.
Yes.
So it was simple for me because I was a businessman. I started with nothing. And the further you get on the line, the less you ever want to go back to nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll work harder. But like I said, I stood on the shoulders of giants. I had everybody was a small business manager in the area. And those that weren't quickly showed themselves as managers. They could be overrun. One was in maintenance and nice guy and everything. Got along well with his crew, but not the ship's captain.
Okay.
So as I'd come up from Calgary and I checked to see about issues, maintenance issues, I saw issues like an oil door that had been left for 3 months and had been fixed. Management at the time was trying to keep costs down. We had more of an accountant running the operation than we should have.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's on me. I had kind of left and was going to take a comfortable position, and then all of a sudden things changed and they put me back in as president. And so that is just totally unacceptable to me because I'm not only putting my pilot at risk, I'm putting my passengers at risk. If that door flies through the tail rotor, the whole ship could come down.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no reason for things like that not to happen. But he says he was asked by management to minimize costing, but that's not where you do it.
No.
You know?
No.
So it's just a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Accountings, like I say, they can cut the tree and keep cutting 10%, but eventually that tree falls over.
Yeah.
You can't keep taking 10% from something and not expect it not to crash.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
I was wondering if you could finish with, you had when you first started, I thought we'd finish with this story. You bought this big helicopter from down in the States. And I was wondering if you could share that story.
Brantley Hines, Brantley 305. They had one in Canada, but I think back when Jesus walked on water, but we had to get to a four-place. This is back because pipeline guy asked us for a bigger ship. So we said, okay, they want to haul two.
You had the R22 at the time?
R22.
Okay, you need a four-passenger.
This is our next step because the 44 hadn't been developed yet.
Okay.
So the Brantley 305. So we buy this Brantley 305, and I went down to Oklahoma to fly it, and the guy told me the fuel gauge was broken. And he was supposed to be a real religious guy. So we flying around. I said, no, let's do one more circuit. And he kept saying, no, we got to land. And I never got it. Like he says, the fuel gate's broken, but we're full of fuel. So I manned up the weight, saying, well, it's not too bad a performer for
full fuel.
Full fuel, yeah, exactly. So away we go. And we had it moved to skids. It was on wheels, should have been my first indication that you got issues. If you got to have a helicopter on wheels, then you're really just an airplane. Yeah. Anyways, we buy it, and I'm proud we're getting this thing up. So I send my partner down to fly it, and he takes his wife. And the first takeoff, he says, geez, I must be a bad pilot because he's dragging along the ground. And away he goes. He gets it up here. And we finally go for a flight after all those horror stories about getting it up here. And we go for one flight. I said, and I just cussed and said, it's gone. There's no way I'm putting a client in this thing. I mean, I got pictures I'll have to dig up. ARA was the call sign of it. And during one of the instances, we did a downwind turn, thinking, well, 10 knots of wind, we'll see how well it has. We ended up landing going backwards in soft ground, and it dug in, went down to the stinger, and the tail rotor churned up dirt and come back up. And there was not not even the paint was removed. We said, well, I understand why it was built this way. No. So it never flew another hour. I sold it to India is where I sold it to my partner, because we had sunk everything into it. We were going to be toast if we didn't sell it.
Yeah.
And so I advertised it, and I had an engineer, John Clegg. He was from New Zealand. He'd come out even in the winter. He'd wear sandals and socks. That's what he wore all the time. Sandals and socks, minus 30. And I said, somehow, John, we got to get this thing down to, I think it was coming out of Minneapolis, and they were flying it over to India.
Wow.
And John comes out and he says, I'll haul it. An old car, an old Indian wagon in a trailer, and we got that thing on. I was never so happy to see a machine leave as that. It just completely underpowered. It just it should never have flown. And now I understand why there were none in Canada. One flew on a mining operation. That was it.
Okay.
And I thought I was a rocket scientist for picking up on this old unit, but gosh, it didn't kill us. And we were all in it. Like it had crashed, the whole company would have been gone because we were all in it thinking that there's no way that would haul 4 people and even half tanks. I would fly the thing off. But
well, so the reason that when you were flying it and demoing with it, the reason he was so anxious is because you were damn near out of fuel.
That's exactly it. But I didn't put one and one together until John flew it back. And it was only like his 3rd or 4th stop that we picked up on that. And I said, you know what? That's why he was wanting to get on the ground so quickly. He was so happy to get rid of that thing, but he knew it'd never fly if he filled up with fuel. Him and I jumped in it.
Yeah.
And I should have known right off the bat, because he said when I went down there the first time, he wanted to take me a ride for it, and I wouldn't go because he wanted to fly it out of the hangar, open the big door, and he was just going to start up and fly it out. And the minute that happened, I said, oh, that's not good. I said, no, I'll be back tomorrow and we'll go for a flight. You get it ready. I want to see the inspection. And we did that. And, at the time, the new company starting out, it would have sunk us had the ship crashed or done anything. So it was a tough decision because I'd spent all that money. John saying, well, I can still do line patrol. I'll just be careful with it. And I said, no, you can't. I said, it's not if, it's just when with this. I said, we started these standards and I'm not going to break them. And we set that in. That was actually probably one of the things that really set our standards in place. When you gamble the whole company on that, and then you got to eat crow and say, no, it's gone. Yeah. And I got paid. I got all the money back eventually because this Indian company bought it. No idea if it even flew or it works. But like I say, I was so thankful the day that drove out on the trailer and John Clegg was hauling it to Minneapolis. Was the happiest day of my life. Yeah, to see it gone. That's when we really started pushing Frank for a 4 place.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, thanks for sharing, Eric. That went by really quick.